up next is a session with Valerie Kim, and it is AI Revolution: How to Not Generate Vulnerabilities. That's the thing. If you generate a whole bunch of code and you created, 10 times more code than you ever used to be able to write before, you've either got to be 10 times as good at catching all the things that you did wrong, or come up with some kind of automation. So Valerie Kim from Scanner now is going to give us an insight into how we can actually automate that process using AI and hopefully catch all the nasties that you didn't know were there. I'll see you shortly. This video is pre-recorded, and then I think Valerie will be joining me live in the studio soon. Well, good morning, good afternoon, or good evening, depending on where you are in the country, in the world, whether you're watching this live or on a replay. Today, actually, this particular segment is a recording. So if you ask some questions, I'm not going to be able to answer straight away. I'm actually going to be in the studio, but someone else is going to do the presentation, not me, but I will be here. Today, we are discussing the concept of AI really introducing more vulnerabilities. This is the biggest problem. As you know, AI is absolutely everywhere. We've got a whole conference about it in June, and it's great. It can be a real boon. It can really help you get up to speed with software development. It can solve lots of problems for you and really help, act like a junior developer. I don't think you can say it's a senior developer yet, but it definitely can, increase your productivity. Only problem is that, sometimes it hallucinates, and sometimes it completely goes mad and does weird stuff. The problem with AI is it's very, very good at writing very plausible code that actually has got vulnerabilities in it and things like that. And this is a difficulty that if you've got a junior programmer, sometimes they write awful code and you can see straight away, oh, they're inexperienced, it's awful code. But AI is very good at writing quite good code that has got some big problems with it. And sometimes it's completely useless, but it looks like it works. And actually, it'll even compile and work. So one of the big things that you're going to have to cater for with AI is also making sure that the quality of the code and the security of the code is up to scratch. And my guest today is an expert in that. Joining me today in the studio will be Valerie Kim, and she is a security expert from Secure, and you're a security expert at Scanner. Is that right?
Yeah, right as rain. Hi, Ian. It's so good to be back, and thanks so much for having me again.
Yeah, it's not your first time. You're back again. We worked out well last time, so it worked good this time. So today you've got some slides, and then you're going to talk about those slides. I'm going to disappear for that bit because nobody needs to see me whilst you're talking through the slides. And then at the end of the slides, I think you're going to do a live demonstration as well. Is that right? You're going to actually show what the product is. Okay, so what I'll do, if you'd like to share your slides, I'll make it magically appear in here, and I will make myself disappear whilst we're doing that.
Yeah, cool. That works. So the focus of today's recording would be the AI adoption and how it changed our development landscape from all the perspectives. And to jump straight into it, we now live in a world that feels a bit bizarre. So if a couple of years ago we'd be looking at AI, with a bit of peculiarity and be looking at it every couple months and thinking about how, oh, look, this stupid language model is still lacking and cannot complete a simple request, or look, this still cannot distinguish a kitten and a balloon. Now that time's long past, and now we live in a world where AI has become an indispensable part of our everyday life and our work life as well. So Copilot, Code Whisperer, ChatGPT, and DeepSeek are no longer just toys, but already productive tools. Statistics show that in the environments where developers have access to those tools, they perform up to 50%. That's one half of all tasks included into the development lifecycle. And for those who think that the developers in their company surely do not have access to be using Gen AI in their work, for those, I'd suggest to reconsider how sure they are about this stance. So, AI is definitely amazing when we live in a world where fast paced has become the new normal and the new expected, but there are also some drawbacks and some hidden dangers to be on lookout for. From the security standpoint, they could be like vaguely generalized into two categories. The first one would be the code that AI generates, and the second one would be the third party components that it suggests to developers for usage. And if we talk about AI generated code, then we have to understand that even though big language models are extremely smart and they do understand what it is that you want to get out from it, they still operate on some level of simplicity. So if you're a developer with some vast experience in the field, you'll also be naturally on the lookout for security. And if you look to recreate the same function or an algorithm with the help of Gen AI, it could produce you a fully feasible code, but at the same time, that code could be open to like multiple vulnerabilities. So it's functional, but it's vulnerable. The trade-off seems to be like slightly off. Then, if we think about big language models in essence and what they need to be performing well is just a lot of raw data. And there is no way to gather that data from purely private resources. So, what we inevitably end up doing is looking for that data in public repositories. And if you've ever been and looked for what people put out on the internet, you'd know that the public repositories are not always safe and more often than not safe. And last but not least, in sometimes language models still do not really understand what it is exactly that we need, and then they resort to just mindless pushing of prompts and they just replicate stuff without thinking, generating a whole lot of vulnerabilities. And if we shift our focus to AI suggested imports, then nothing's fruity here as well. So, once again, they do offer vulnerabilities primarily by not vulnerabilities, but dependencies by popularity rather than security. And like there is nothing you can do about this reasoning. It's solid, but it's also prone to vulnerabilities. Then we love talking about supply chain security and how lack of said security mechanism allows attackers to exploit a bunch of zero-day threats. And using AI, especially with how it likes to hallucinate when it does not want to show that it did not really understand what it is that he need, it opens up a whole avenue of possible spoofing, capture via typo-squatting, outdated libraries, etc. And lastly, these proposals will, unless you specifically ask for that, will not account for any IP regulations, which means that if you just copy those mindlessly, you might find yourself facing a lawsuit in some distant future. So, to prove my point further, I've gathered a few examples of how AI, in this case ChatGPT, uh, not necessarily failed, but introduced a whole lot of vulnerabilities into the snippets of code that it produced. The first one was a developer who was making an application for a beauty parlor with the need to first put on the appointment data into the database and then extract it back to make that appointment. So in this case, the code is valid. And at the same time, the code is prone to one of my personal favorites among the vulnerabilities. So here's a case of SQL injection. The code uses simple concatenation of unvalidated user input to build the SQL text query for the database. And to top it off, like a cherry on top, there's also an issue with SQL isolation, as there is no control over the transaction isolation level. So this, of course, leaves the application exposed to unpredictable behavior should there be any malicious input, and could lead to a tool failure. So not a big fan, definitely do not recommend that. In second case, we asked the chat to assume the role of a Delphi developer who is developing an online store using TMS web core, and this code should just allow the customer to just browse through the products in the inventory. And this code, once again, is fully functional and is also susceptible to reflected cross-site scripting. And last but not least, since third time's a charm, we assume the role of somebody who's developing an airline ticket purchase service. This one should have been using the MS Web Core, and with this code, it should have been possible to log in the application. This code is also not without fault and would be susceptible to open redirect. So since this is something that we typically use in a scenario of single sign-ons, there's usually a whitelist to preserve the URLs that will be accepted and distinguish them from those that are unexpected and could possibly be malicious. There is nothing as such here, which makes the code susceptible to vulnerabilities. Once again, this doesn't mean that this will always be the case and that you cannot be using GenAI for your development purposes, but it's just to prove the point that this possibility is always around the table, and especially with how convenient it is to just copy and paste it mindlessly, there is a high chance that you could be bringing something more than just functional code along the way. So, since I've been here talking about how GenAI is more bad than good, what do we do, especially taking into account how fast those changes could be implemented by AI? It doesn't require even the tenth of the time that a developer would spend on writing that code. It doesn't need to have bathroom breaks, smoke breaks, nothing like that. So the answer, even though it existed prior to GenAI adoption, would be as simple and as effective, and it would be to have automated tools in place to protect your code base and not have them as this like miraculous thing that you're doing from time to time, like once a month or when there is a full moon, but do it on the regular basis. Something like static analysis and SCA, SCS for your third-party components. And we don't talk about the state of software composition analysis for Delphi. Everyone's doing their best. However, one thing that is also noticeable is that AI adoption is something that we see in every sphere of our lives. So the security provisioners, your classic static application security vendors, let's say, are also looking to be implementing AI features to hold a candle to the changes that AI brings. And it's only natural that if there are AI models that are looking to be generating some code, generating suggestions, there will be AI security assistants who can quickly come and cover the mess that the previous model left after itself. So we might be seeing more development, and I do believe that we will be seeing more development in that sphere in the immediate future, where we could be unironically looking into a situation where there is like an AI division of labor, where one Gen AI generates the code that you should have been writing, and the other one is fixing, patching the code that you submitted into your development repo. So what it leaves us people with, more time for coffee breaks if we're staying positive, and we should be staying positive, I think. So to prove the point of how security assistants also do their job, I had this one example of code vulnerable to open redirect. So here's another similar example, and this AI answer I actually pulled from what their scanner's remediation AI does. And with open redirect, it's like the easiest way out is just to have a whitelist of domains that will be allowed here. And AI's answer did just that. So this one is not something that you understand as a problem, but still have to like type it out yourself, but something that could be in a similar manner to like your Gen AI generated response, just copy paste it to whatever you place your snippets of code. Then I also have this one showcasing how it could look in the UI, but I do believe I'll show it myself. So with regard to the security features provided by security provisioners that are based off of Gen AI, they work, and I'll showcase you more even more later. But there are also some things to consider. And once again, we drive ourselves into that same wall, which is where do all of those Gen AI get their data from? So with cloud vendors, there's really no way to tell if they're not using your proprietary code to make changes, and train their own language models. And since like AI adoption is proceeding rapidly, swiftly, and legislation, as usual, it just falls behind. At the moment, we are in this kind of a gray zone, so there is no way to tell. There are no repercussions, and a cloud vendor could be using it absolutely legally, and this could not be in line with the security policies you have for your code base. Since you have no idea and you have no way to press for that issue to be resolved, what we editors can believe in is that all of those features should still be available to you with complete control over data residency and IP residency, and suggest taking a look at the vendors who do provide those features with no, let's say, obligation to move to cloud and be, kind of like guinea pigs for the LLMs that the vendor themselves might be training. And I believe that would be pretty much it for the slides. And come back.
Okay, well, I'll turn that bit off now. It's a good topic. I mean, the reason I was saying, oh, good, let's talk about this and do a webinar, because it is one of these things where I think people are, the people that have really grasped AI are being careful. They realize that AI hallucinates, which is the term that people are using for when it gets things wrong. But the trouble is that I had one person the other day, he was telling me, he was asking about Delphi AI, and he had a bunch of .NET guys, and he said they're writing hundreds of thousands of lines of code using AI. And I won't say his name because he's a customer, but I thought, how do you test that? And I said to him, that's, I was trying to be nice and say, I'd be interested to know what quality assurance you use to test that. He said, we use the normal things we use to test the code. He's just telling me one thing that doesn't add up with what he's saying. He's trying to tell me that the developers that were using only AI were suddenly 10 times or 100 times more productive. So they're generating 100 times more code, or which I think is fanciful. But even if it's 10 times more code, he's saying we're using our standard methodology to test the security and validity of that code. I am
Yeah, something
skeptical.
feels off.
It doesn't add up because if you're suddenly doing 10 times the volume or 100 times the volume of code, unless you've got 100 times the unit test, 100 times the scans from the scanner or something like that, something's got to give. And that, as I said before at the start of this presentation, the trouble is that AI is very, very good at producing a lot of very
Yes.
plausible code that looks good. And you're like, wow, it's really amazing. But if it's doing 10 to 100 times the volume that you normally do, and you're got to review that code yourself, you're going to have 10 to 100 times the volume of reviews of the code. Eventually, that's got to be automated. And I think that's where people like Secure and your Scanner comes in to bridge that gap, because it's all very well increasing the productivity of the devs, but you've also then got to increase the productivity of the QA and the security scanning, and that's exactly what you're talking about, isn't it? So, so I think now you've got a demo that you want to show us, because you've actually got a product that's got some AI built into it, which is interesting, and you're going to show us kind of some of the things that you are working on and that you've got working to help with that problem of so much code. Now you need some help to look for the vulnerabilities. Is that right?
Absolutely. But also, if I just may add to that argument, since like we've actually just had this conversation right today with the people in the team, that even if you're not looking into accelerating your development pace, once people like big enterprise customers are really building the security features into their pipeline as an indispensable part of the pipeline, they're already like, but we have so many repos and we want to run like 100 builds a day, and we just don't know how to accelerate the analysis that's already been performed in an otherwise like a pretty classic scenario. And you're telling me that your volume of code, like sheer volume of code, it increases tenfold, and your infrastructure and your security infrastructure is still like, yeah, sure, we can do that, we can handle that. I I think
Yeah,
twice where the
that's.
shortcuts were taken.
I mean, we're not negative. We're not saying AI is a bad thing. What we're saying is that you've got to catch up with what's going on in AI. That if it's going to accelerate and enhance the development process and the build process and the staging process and all the other things that go on, then you're also going to have to enhance how you automate your security scanning and your quality scanning and reviews and things like that. And that's why we're talking about this today. So,
Yeah.
okay. So, do you want to go ahead and share your screen, and I'll make it appear on the stream, and then
Yep.
I'll probably hand over to you again. I think. There we
I
go.
believe I'm sharing.
Yep, we are. What I'll do, I'm going to maximize that and get rid of. I think that's as big as we can do it. So that's fine. That's okay. I'll
Yeah.
turn myself off for now.
So, and I'll be presenting to you with pride what Durskanis team's been working on in the scope of AI adoption. So, for like this MVP kind of product, we have decided to focus on two main avenues. So the first one, if we look into that highly accelerated development pipeline, the first thing that comes into attention is just the sheer amount of verification that you have to be doing on that increased code volume. So since for Delphi, our offering is primarily static analysis, there is that old nagging issue that we're still battling with and with no resolve, which is that while static analysis is amazing because it has the maximum code coverage, the great depth of analysis, unmatched by other types of analysis. And it also doesn't require you to have like an already built application so you can run it as many times as you want. It inevitably produces some rate of false positives, which is less than ideal. But also, if you're looking to min max on that ratio, you are inevitably reaching that dilemma of undercommitting vulnerabilities. And this is not something that their scanning team wants to do, but also just going through the same false positives across the projects over and over could be not something that you want to be spending your days and weeks on. So the first avenue would actually be adding that AI assistance to result verification or triage. And this feature, alongside the second one, which is DI remediation, can be launched directly during the analysis initiation. So here we can put our Delphi code. Let me do it. And then, so all other features stay exactly the same, but we now have that AI corner with their triage that you can be launching directly during the start of the analysis, and their code fix, which will be the ready to go AI remediation. So you can just upload it to the system, save it as settings, and be all good with only like the actionable insights once all of these AI features they go through your code and make sure that what you're left with is something that truly matters and doesn't distract you with unnecessary noise and just detections that don't really pose an immediate or like any threat to the state of security in the application. So you could be doing with this, you could be going with this. In Dorscan, only critical and medium level vulnerabilities affect the overall security posture of the application. So low and info level vulnerabilities will be more like flagging some things with the code quality, or something that is still a bad coding practice, but with no immediate repercussion. But you could be going with all of those. And then after the triage is complete, we move into the second part where in your classic tooling, you have the remediation advice um, just explaining to you why exactly this fragment of code has been flagged as vulnerable, but fixing that code stays up on you. And like if your code was AI generated, why not let another AI fix that code? So then you have that list of vulnerabilities left after the triage, and you could go and generate AI fixes for the vulnerabilities that were left after those results were cleaned up and all pretty and nice. So all of this is just here for the overall quality of life and for us to be able to match that speed that AI adoption brought to the speed of development process. Then we could go trigger a scan, call today, have our coffee. In the meantime, let's go into the project to see how it's gonna look once the analysis is completed. So also we do believe that not everyone will be happy with these changes. There are still a lot of people who believe in the greatness of what a human brain has to offer. So these AI features are completely up to you to use. They could be applied in bulk. They also could be applied just for targeted results. So we could be looking at just a scan project with like no AI embellishment. Go one by one. If we take a look at this
Yes.
vulnerability,
So
yes,
just to recap what you're saying. So basically, what we're saying is it's optional, and you can decide whether you turn it on or off. and you can also decide the level of the scan that occurs as well. So you can go for critical vulnerabilities and the depth at which the AI takes part. I thought it was funny when you said you mashed the two AIs against each other. I thought that was hilarious. I saw a video the other day of two AI robots who were doing
Communicating.
MySpace kickboxing against each other, and they were fighting. I thought, oh no, now we're really going crazy. But in a way, this is the thing about security, is that it is a fight. You're fighting against people who quite often they're just being annoying and trying to break the system, or they're doing something dumb that breaks it. But more importantly, you're fighting against increasingly sophisticated hackers who themselves are using AI as well. And that's going to be the next battlefront, really, I think, for antivirus vendors and security professionals, is that AI is going to get better at fighting against us, the people, the people on the good side of things. So very interesting. Yeah. Anyway, sorry to interrupt you. Carry on.
No, no, no. These are like it's all about mindset. I tell this myself every day, but yeah, you're absolutely correct. So these tools that we are very happy to have at our disposal, we are not the only people who have access to said tools, and I think this is something that as just with AI suggestions, like you see AI generate flawless code 10 times, and when on the 11th there is like a sneaky little vulnerability, you just you don't pay attention and then it slips through. And the same goes for us overlooking that there are hackers who also have access to these tools, who could be like intentionally spoiling the data in public repos, especially with third-party components. And this is just something that we do have to adapt to somehow, unless we want to lose, and we don't want to lose. So, if we're circling back, there's kind of still believes that these features should not and should never be compulsory to use. But if you want, this could be a great improvement to the overall like speed of processes, of security processes in the company. We're also very committed to bridging that gap between development and security, translating it from one language to another so that it doesn't look like the security team is just somewhere on your developers' backs, nagging them about something that isn't really exploitable and just a waste of their time. So that is why, if we navigate to a like particular vulnerability, here I've already triaged this. So let's look at another one. So if you want to go through the vulnerabilities one by one, if you didn't do this in bulk, which also works, we have this new button, easy to spot, and let's wait for it to see what's its judgment. So this vulnerability is just your classic static analysis. We didn't do anything to it. And after having it a moment of consideration, their triage will essentially pass on the judgment. It builds in on what we already had at the scanner with the smart filter confi, which looked deeper into the vulnerability that was just triggered by some pattern, recognizing the construction in code as vulnerable, but it now looks deeper into the surrounding context to pass on the judgment of whether this was something like, your
Wow,
first
that
kid
that
false positive.
that's pretty amazing. I mean, that is just like having some kind of expert sitting there going, "Okay, well, I've checked it because you weren't sure, and I can tell you it's definitely a vulnerability." I really like that. That's
Yeah,
pretty awesome. AI is really, it's taking leaps and bounds forward. Really, I don't know
it
whether
is.
I'm terrified or very pleased.
And it's only gonna be even faster and better. So yeah, uh, if we're not using it, we're like just genuinely missing out. So the thing about dirt triage is that it doesn't automatically go with this or that. Is that it provides reasoning for believing, like think of it as that advanced reasoning model, and that's what dirt triage will do to the results of your just raw unfiltered static analysis results, for you to have not only the judgment but also the reasoning behind the judgment why this or that is a vulnerability or a false positive. So
So it's basically it's explaining itself, and I think that's quite important with AI. Is it's all very well for AI to make you more productive, but you want to know after it's done it, what did it do? Why does it think this is a bad idea? Why does it say it's a confirmed vulnerability? The explanation is quite critical, I think, really.
it is. It kind of reminds me of that dino meme with the urge to know why, and I do believe that without that why, most of the judgment is just could be easily perceived as baseless and meaningless. Like, and where do you get that from? So that's why it's really important, especially with this new technologies and AI. Despite the like past adoption, is still relatively new. So we have to build the trust and like both continue the trust in the product and in the new features that it offers. And so now we have this vulnerability taken a look at by their triage. And now, once we've established that in this context, this is a true vulnerability, we could also be going from this, like the classic recommendation that still leaves you just implementing those changes yourself, to the fix with their code fix that will actually bring you the feasible changes. So let me take a look. In this case, like this one, won't do much, like no magic show, but it still works. So with their code fix, in a similar manner, we will provide you what exactly it is that their code fix did, instead of just showing you the fixed fragment of code. And in the bottom, you can always shift in between the fixed fragment and the original fragment, so that you can double check, make sure that everything's all right. There are no, like extra symbols anywhere added or removed. Perhaps. So there was this one that was also confirmed by their triage, and we could do that. Give it a bit of time. It's still not exactly there in terms of speed, but
Very good. Yeah, I can see what it's doing. It's basically saying, "Hey, I would not have spotted this. I have to say, I wouldn't have spotted that was a vulnerability, but it's not wrong."
it would be a tragedy if it was. So,
Yeah, well, yeah, I
yeah. Once again, their code fix will tell you what it is that it did, and provide you with the changed abstract of code. You can switch the view, switch, see here's what exactly was wrong with it, then just copy paste it, bring it to your ID, rescan, make sure you did an amazing job. So that's basically the idea of it. You can go one by one and you can go in bulk. And since I've also briefly mentioned how the IP governance is something that we not yet have the legal protection against, but we might be already feeling the consequences of. All of these features will be available on-prem in air-gapped environment, uh, to make sure that you're not just taking their scanner's word that it doesn't do anything with the code to train its own AI, but also to make sure that you can like actionably prove it yourself.
Yeah. So you're protecting their intellectual property, is what you're saying, and that's one of the commitments that you give. I think that's good because that's basically, Embarcadero's default position is we know that when someone sits down to code with Rad Studio, that we are there sitting at the desk with them in spirit, not actually sitting there. That would be weird. But I take it very seriously in the company that that's how we should view what we're doing when we're doing things with people's code, when the IDE does things. And I think tools like yours as well, that you take into account, this is their livelihood, this is their secret sauce, their special blend of herbs and spices to make the fried chicken or whatever it is. That's what it is. And so if you go and are careless with their secret blend of herbs and spices, then all of a sudden their competitors got it. So I think it's a basic commitment that people should have, and I'm glad that's the way that Secure and Scanner view things. So it's great. Yeah.
Yeah, so we're on the same line with Red Studio with Embarcadero on this. We believe that, especially as security provisioners, we should provide full transparency in the matters that regard the IP governance and just the overall transparency in all of the processes that we bring as services to the end customer. So hopefully it does help and helps us bridge that gap between what AI is crafting every day and what we can um, catch before it's too late and gets into production.
That's excellent. Yeah. Good stuff. Have you got more to show, or have we got to a kind of stopping point? I don't want to turn off your sharing until you're ready.
Spare me. That's a lot of work that went into training this model and bringing it to the UI. So I have nothing more to show you, and hope that this in
Excellent. Okay,
itself
I
works.
thought we were at that point. That's good. I'm just going to turn off the screen share so that we are big enough that people can see. Um, it's no secret. I'm a big fan of Scanner. I'm a big fan of Secure. I like the fact that we've actually got some shared aims. Really, you don't create IDEs, we don't create security software, so it's perfect. We're not at each other's throats, and I think I know plenty of people have been put your way. Sometimes they come back and go, "Oh, it wasn't for us because the scan produced a lot of false positives." But that's not always the case. But some people said that, and I'm like, would you rather that it didn't find things by accident? That it missed things, and that's the trouble. Is that if you have antivirus, for example, sometimes antivirus is going to look at a file and go, that looks suspicious, even though it's completely innocent. That looks suspicious. In fact, it happens to Rad Studio. But what's more important, that Scanner, I've had enough people come back to me and say, actually, and one of these was, and one of our MVPs came back and said, actually, I found a load of stuff and I was surprised. And the guy, I don't want to call him out because might make him feel a bit embarrassed that I'm talking about the fact that you found some problems with his code, but he's a difficult guy to please. He knows who he is, and I'm going to see him in next week actually in Amsterdam. Um,
We
but
actually say at There's Canada that a difficult customer is the best customer because they know what they want and they can
that
communicate that clearly. So it
that's
strives
exactly
you
it. Yeah, he
achieve
was very
excellence.
complimentary. He said, "What you found, there were a couple of things where he's like, no, that's not really a problem. That's going to happen. But what you did find that was a real problem, he had never spotted it. And I know this guy to be one of the best developers out there. He's a very smart guy. I've got a lot of respect for him. And if he's convinced, then I'm convinced because he is very difficult to please. Notoriously, he's very well known for it. So it's great stuff. And Andy, who we were talking earlier on, not off camera, but I like the fact that you guys are you support Delphi very heavily. and I think you provide a useful service. And I'm really pleased to see that you're incorporating AI into it as well, because I think um, you've got to really,
Yeah,
because
you really have no choice at this
yeah,
point.
because with the rise of AI in the last 2 years, AI has become the thing. It's the thing that is going on, and nobody can ignore it anymore. It is a force of nature. It's as important as the invention of the internet, as important as the invention of the smartphone, and I think it's probably got the potential to be even more important than that. And it's great to see you incorporating it in your scans as well, which are going to help a lot of people out in the future, I think, as well. And really combat against that. Increase in productivity means an increase in potential mistakes
Yeah.
and a technical debt of checking the errors and security things. So great stuff. Okay, well, I think that's it then, Valerie. So thanks very much. I'm going to thank you, and I shall
And
turn your
thank
feed
you.
off. Okay, and I'll just turn her off the screen off there. I want to thank everybody for watching today, and let me just make my screen go to the right size. There you go. And I'll turn off the captions so that we aren't confused about who I am. I'm not Valerie Kim, but I want to thank Valerie for coming in. And as I said, this was pre-recorded, this particular section, but you'll get a chance to see it again, and we'll be doing some Q&A later as well, live questions and answers. I'm not sure if Scanner will be there, but I definitely will be, because we're recording this a couple of weeks in advance of when we're going to show it. But if you scan that QR code there, it'll take you directly to Scanner's website. If not, if you're not really technologically advanced, then you can go onto here and go to dersecure.com, which is I spelt the caption wrong there, but that's my mistake. But you can go there and learn all about it. They're very well educated about Delphi Code and Rad Studio. I deal with them all the time, so have some fun with them and see we go from there. That's actually their controlling group company, I suppose, is Deal Secure. But great stuff. Okay, anyway, that's it for now, and I'll see you again next time. Thanks very much. And in fact, you'll actually see me again now, because now is next time. So as I said, we did actually record this a couple of weeks ago. It was just before the Delphi Summit. And we kind of went over a few things. My dog was not in the background like he is now. He's been outside, and now he's, I don't know what he's doing. But Valerie and I were talking about frogs whilst you were watching that video, as you do. And she's joining me live now. Let me just make it happen. Hello, Valerie. How are you?
Hi, Ian.
Yeah.
It's great to be back and a great chat
Yeah,
about
yeah.
frogs. Yeah.
Let's not tell them why. We'll just leave it at that. We talked about frogs. It was an interesting fact, and then we're going to move on. They were like, "What was it they said about frogs?"
Suspense.
Yeah. So I had a couple of people saying some things. One guy said that's the problem with AI. There are many new developers out there who've never programmed before and now storming into the executive offices. I think this is a bit over dramatization, but with programs completely from Chat GPT. I, Klaus, I'm skeptical that's actually happening, because I tell you, if they storm most offices, they'll probably get clouted as soon as they walk through the door. But as he then said, you can't check everything, and that's the madness. Super contribution becomes mandatory. Well, I think this is the whole point about the scanner, is that what you're trying to do there, and I'm going to put your barcode up again so that people can scan it, is that you're trying to make it so that I'm going to put your thing there as well. If you're going to be more productive, and we said this in the video, you're going to be more productive by generating code with AI, or even if you're not, even if you're just, maybe you're outsourcing it to somewhere like, I don't know, some
Where labor is
yeah,
cheaper.
somewhere where labor's cheaper, and we all know how that works. And it doesn't really matter whether it's a human or an AI. At the end of the day, if you did not personally write that code, then you've got to check that code. And if it's a lot of code, let's say you outsource it to a team of 10 people or a AI that does the work of 10 people, now you've got 10 times the output that you've got to review, and you have to review it. Who in their right mind is going to trust the AI or your outsourcing people, to produce good quality code? The answer is you're not. So either you're going to review those many thousands of lines that the very efficient outsourcing team have created, or the AI have created. And here's the solution: is the scanner. And as I said before, I have no problem promoting your services. What you do is great. Andy and I and you, we all will have a good working relationship. We all, understand each other. Andy is the boss. He's always super enthusiastic. But I think as well, the company understands Delphi. You go the extra mile to try and make sure that your services work with Delphi, and that for us is a big plus. There is a hole in the market. There are some other options out there for code quality analysis and all the rest of it, but you guys specialize in that, and that's it's a big deal for us, uh, and I think that's it. Now, when it comes to, oh, by the way, someone said good live. I think they meant a good LinkedIn live, because we go out to LinkedIn live as well as various other Meta live, Instagram Live, which I think is Meta Live, about 4 YouTube channels. We're everywhere,
Yeah.
you know. But on the AI part of it, that's a relatively new
TikTok.
service for you, isn't it? Is that right?
Yes. So actually, like the very first installment of like full-fledged AI is happening around like next couple of weeks, and we already had like something, I wouldn't say necessarily simplistic, but far more limited in what it could offer and achieve, which was our confi. And we've had that for like a while, but now with the speed of adoption of AI everywhere, we just thought that it no longer stands up to par with the demand. So that is why we are bringing their triage and their code fix to help just keep up the pace with the overreaching acceleration of everything.
Yeah. I think it's a good name as well for the two things it does. Der Triage literally explains what it does. The idea
Yeah.
is, this bit looks weird, and it's like when you go to hospital and you walk in the door, and there's a thing called a triage nurse, and their job is to look at your injuries or whatever you say is wrong with you, and work out, should you be seen immediately because it's life threatening, or can you wait a little while? It happens a lot in the United Kingdom, for example, in
Oh
England,
yeah, the
where,
NHS.
yeah, it's very common for people to wait hours in the hospital. It doesn't happen so much in the United States because you pay a lot of money,
Yeah.
and they can afford to have 10 times the staff. But United Kingdom is all completely financed by taxes and things like that, and that means they don't have enough people to do the job. So triage is what it does. And it's the same thing with this. If you triage says, this section of code here looks like it might be not so great. And I like that idea of saying, we're not saying it's definitely wrong. We're not saying it's definitely insecure. We think it looks like it could be. And I think that's an important shift in focus from what was being said before, which is, hey, we're scanning it and we found a vulnerability, which is what antivirus does. Is, I found this, it's definitely a virus. And I think the other thing to maybe recognize as well is that with these automated tests, it's inevitable that you will get false positives. It's inevitable. Oh, Valerie disappeared. Whoops. Okay, she'll be back in a second. And it's inevitable that you're going to get some kind of um, false positive where something horrible happened. I think Valerie's internet connection's dropped, so she'll be back in a second, I'm sure. But with a false positive, if it's automated testing, if you don't get a false positive, then you've set your standards too low, and that's the difficulty there. That there's a fine line between never getting a false positive and never actually finding something that is wrong. So it's one of those issues. I wonder if Valerie's going to come back. Valerie, it's the same link. So whoops. Let me see if she's going to come back. Valerie? Maybe her internet's gone. It happens. Internet's an approximation in most places, so you know how these things are. Um, Now, at Embarcadero, you know, we try to be independent of recommending too many solutions that are not our own. But you know, we don't want to pick favourites. But at the same time, in a market where there aren't many options, then sometimes you know it's better for us to actually recommend a very specific option. I hear a bleep. She's back again. Yes. The vagaries of the internet, Valerie. Yeah, you're back and you're on camera again. Good job. Yeah, it happens. Oh, I can't hear you now. Your audio's muted. Oh, this happens to me sometimes as well. Don't worry. Yeah, I can't hear what you're saying. So no, no, I can see your lips moving, but I can't hear you. So it's okay. Uh,
Now?
Now I can hear you. There you go. Hey, don't worry about it. You know what? As I told you, because when you first went on camera a couple of webinars ago, you're like, "Oh, I don't really do this very often. This is the first time." And I'm like, don't worry, this is the best one to the best kind of system to come with because it's very laid back, and I don't expect people to be, you know what I mean? Like I think you should feel comfortable with being a guest and expect the unexpected. Internet goes down, microphones don't work, and all sorts of other things happen. Otherwise, I'd be in trouble. So yeah,
Yeah,
so I mean, I was saying whilst you were gone, I think it's important for people to recognise there will be false positives. Sometimes, you know, the scan is going to scan it and find a load of stuff, and you go, "Well, that's not a problem." But it's better that it finds things that are not a problem, as long as it also finds things that are a problem. And there's a fine tuning between, you know, finding nothing and finding too much, and you know, tweaking it. So, I think that you know, going and saying "dir triage" is a good idea, and "dir fix" as well is a very interesting development as well. And I wait to see how that turns out. I think you're brave as a company to try and do that because people are very picky about their code. So, you know,
yeah.
yeah.
But
So
like most cases, though, we will be guaranteeing that nothing changes about like the structure of the code. So it's only the security features that are implemented because we've been like while the people have been writing code, we've been fixing those mistakes in their code for like over a decade. So perhaps we actually know what we're talking about when we're suggesting to do something. Like,
yeah, you haven't worked with enough grumpy programmers to realise that some of them don't care. They'll just no, I'm sorry, I'm right and you're wrong. It doesn't matter how good your suggestion is. They just don't want to know. Some people are like this, you know. It's like the
yeah,
three monkeys.
that's
Jimmy,
professional pride. So
yeah, well,
up
also,
to them.
attitude problem is the way I would sum it up, but yes, it's the same thing. And Jimmy Arcanum, I think Arcanum, he's doing a clapping emoji, so I think that's a good thing. But also, I think there's another reason why, and that is he's got a frog emoji. So clearly, clearly, he took to heart what we were talking about. But that's great. Okay, yeah. Well, you know, sorry your internet dropped. Yeah, these things happen. Don't worry about it. That's what we did a pre-recorded video, and I think we covered all the points we could do. I did ask the sales director, and she's not responded, so I'm going to jump the gun a little bit. We're probably going to do another webinar about this in the coming weeks, where we examine, you know, what Scanner can do. And the reason is that we're hoping to look at a deal where we actually enable some scans as well, and get people more able to have some scans included in certain things like that. But it's not the ink's not dry on contracts yet, so we can't say for certain. Whoops, my I have like a Android tablet behind me, just made a really loud ringing noise for some reason. But Boyan Mitov is a very well-known guy. He's been on this week, and he's gone for the three frogs. I think we've started something, Valerie.
That's the ultimate frog, the story about the frog, will go to the highest bidder. We're currently sitting at three.
We'll send it to them as a private email and not tell anybody else. There you go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You sign an
So
NDA before you get the story.
that's the good idea. Yes, I like that idea. Yeah. Well, like I say, we're hoping to do a lot more with Scanner. As a company, we're very convinced. We've had a few people who we trust have used the scans. Some of them a little, I told you that some of these people are very picky and like, oh, it wasn't quite for me. But actually, it did find stuff, and the things it found were correct. And like I say, I didn't want to call out the guy in particular who it was, but he had some scans on a project, and I know him to be an extremely good software engineer. Like, he understands stuff at very low level. He's very particular, very difficult person to please, and he was very complimentary about it. He said, well, I didn't find, he didn't find that many, but it did find some things. And if it found problems in his code, then it can find problems in anybody's code, because this guy really knows what he's doing. And that was an impressive result, I think, for Der Scanner. Apparently, Boyan Mitov says the frog wars are on. Oh God, what have we done? Yeah. All right. Well, thanks a lot, Valerie, once again for joining. And well, I'll
Thanks for
see you.
having me.
No worries, and I'll see you next time, where we'll do another webinar and hopefully have some good news about some other stuff happening as well.
Yeah, sounds exciting.
All right, it is.
We're gonna keep our lips sealed for the
Yes.
moment. Yeah.
Fingers crossed and zipped up. Yeah. All right. Thanks a lot.
Yeah.
Bye bye.
Thanks. Bye bye.